There it is.
War. It is ours. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning! Warning!
We gotta stop them! They're gonna kill us all! Industry, they organize labor, they human beings. When the outdoor the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even casually take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it.
Right! You tell them I'm coming! And hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Revolution Radio.
First hour. All right, greetings, Earth Explorers. Welcome to X Squared Radio. I'm your host, Brooks Agnew, coming to you live from an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains. This is where the past meets the future. In here, the results are always positive. We might go a little past your imagination, but have no fear. You will be safely traveling with us. Tonight we are streaming to you live on Revolution Radio, as well as YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, DLive, and Twitter via Periscope. I don't have guests on this program very often, you know that, but I have a special guest tonight, Alara of Sirius. I don't know if you know who she is, but I can tell you that each of us will find a place in our lives where we call the dark night of the soul. Some of us come out unscathed. Others come out changed. Alara's one of those beings. So I decided to have her on tonight. I think she's got some great ideas. She comes highly recommended from my partner and friend. And so I'd like to welcome her on the program. Welcome to the program, Alara. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. So, you know, it's a 2-hour program, but it takes like 10 minutes to get through it. So the first question I would like to ask is this awakening where you felt compelled to go after your mission. How did it awaken you? How did it change you from the mortal that you were to the being you are now?
That's such a great way of putting it. First of all, Brooks, I'm honored to be on your show. I'm honored to be on your show. I've heard a lot of wonderful things about you. Well, I had an experience with a ship, and of course, I've done a lot of things in my life, but I started out as a physics major in college, so I thought I understood how things worked, and I thought I understood what was possible and what wasn't. So when this happened to me, I instantly had to come to terms with the fact that what I thought was impossible, it wasn't factual, and it sent me on a whole thing. It it changed me forever. I started meditating, and I got very spiritual, is how other people would describe it that way, that I got very, very spiritual, and started really seeking the creator and seeking to understand what my mission was here and why I was woken up. And yeah, it's been quite a journey.
You know, a lot of people have experiences like this, some when they're kids, 9 years old, some have as teenagers, but they have a tendency to go back to sleep. They get wrapped up in the solids of the world and the struggle of rent and car payments and relationships and all that. But there are a few of us who never go back to sleep, and we live in a constant state of amazement. Yeah. So there are so many places to go in this genre of let's just call it disclosure. What do you gravitate to the most? What draws you? What really wakes you up in the morning?
Well, my thing is secret space programs. I understand on a very real level how real it is, and just a series of synchronicities. It's just showed me that my path is to help usher this disclosure process along. So I'm out there speaking my truth and the things I've experienced, and I'm trying to, I hope my goal is to slowly see the people that don't know with, hey, start thinking about this possibility, So that's largely what led me to do the Space Force News on Sunday nights, is because I couldn't believe that. I understand that it's SSP disclosure, right? And I couldn't believe when this all started to happen, the Space Force, that no one was doing it. I was like, how come no one is doing this? This is history in the making right now.
I know.
Right? And how quickly it gets made is up to us, So I don't know if I do it, the proper justice it deserves, because I'm not a professional journalist, but I'm learning, and I have a love and a passion for it. So if that makes a difference, then
there are a couple of aspects about it that some people get lost in, or that loses them. One is, lots of people look up in the sky and they see lights, they see ships, they see what they think are ships, they photograph things, they see photographs other people take, and they realize that with all these witnesses, there has to be something flying up there in the skies. It's all over the world. Every state, every town has somebody that has seen one. However, I'm convinced that they are as present as they want to be.
Yes.
So in your feeling, in your experience so far, do you think that there are other more advanced races that are living on this planet at the same time with us?
I think it's entirely possible. There's still some things that mystify me, when you start to wrap your mind around the fact that, yes, the ET tech is super advanced, and it's what's that old saying? It's sufficient. It would appear as magic to people that, and that's what we're looking at here. But we have this technology too. So it's really not a challenge when you get to that level technologically. It's not a challenge to hide yourself from everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like Star Trek. I mean, we got seated with it in Star Trek, right?
Yeah.
Whenever they went by a planet that wasn't quite there yet, it was, hey, put the cloaking on. You know what I mean? Don't let them see us. They're not ready yet. It's the same thing, right? So
I mean, why would they care I approach these things from a binary standpoint sometimes, so I don't get too lost. Like, either these advanced technologies and beings that are flying them are from another world, or they're not. Maybe they're this world in the previous zenith, let's call it, maybe 100,000 years ago, and they survived, and the rest of mankind was wiped out by some cataclysm.
It's possible.
And the environment that they used to live in will not allow them to live in our environment now. So they keep themselves sealed away from us, maybe under the ocean or in a special environment that they make. But they're Earthlings too, just from another zenith. Or they're from another world, which, as also a physics major myself, I wonder, then how did you travel across space? That's the big question.
Right? I think we're looking at both.
It could be, you think about Earth. if even from Mars, we take pictures of Earth from Mars using some of the rovers, it's so small, it's so blue, and that's just 50 million miles away. But in the galaxy, Earth is nothing. It doesn't even show up. So I don't even know why we would be so interesting to another star system to come investigate us. We didn't even start broadcasting radio until 100 years ago.
Right? It seems like they were all attracted. Look, I'm sure they've always been here, because if you really dig into the ancient texts, there's UFO evidence all over them. I'm sure they've always been here. But which ones? I mean, I can't tell you that. But where was I going with that? I was going somewhere with that. I hate when that happens. It just shorted out.
It gets worse when you get older.
Right?
So when we were more primitive and maybe just as warlike as we are now, but we weren't flying in the skies, we were chucking spears at one another. And the population of Earth was way smaller than it is now. It wasn't 7 or 8 billion people. It was like 500 million people. We were easy pickings then for an advanced civilization. Why not just wipe us out then? Why deal with pharaohs and kings and all that then?
I remember now what I was going to say. So, after we started messing with the nuclear stuff, it seems like they were attracted. They started showing up in mass after that. And it seems like that event, for some reason, it attracted them all. They all started paying attention to us. Now, that seems to me like that was what signaled to them, oh no, we got a problem over here in the Earth sector.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably right too, because when you have a nuclear explosion, it ripples through space-time. It ripples through
the cosmic web.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep. That's what I'm thinking triggered it, why they're all paying attention now to what's going on here.
And we blew off another, 2,600 of the things from then until now. We don't do it as an act of war, but we do it in experimentation all the time. And I still think that has an effect on other realms, shall we say.
Yeah, and clearly they're not okay with that, because they've shut down our stuff before. So clearly they're not okay they're monitoring the situation, and they're, I think it's abundantly clear that they're willing to step in if we get a little out of hand with our nuclear stuff, which is interesting, because now we want to do, well, at least they're talking about it in the mainstream articles, is doing the nuclear propulsion in space. That's going to be the first thing they're going to.
Well, I mean, it is and it isn't. They're going to use the heavy ions that are put off by a nuclear reaction, and they're going to charge them and shove them out the back at about a quarter the speed of light. And that's what they're going to try to generate drive with. It's not enough to push a big spaceship, but it's enough to push a little satellite. And the fuel supply will last for 2 or 3 years, which will get it up to pretty good speeds.
So is that the ion drive that you're speaking of?
Well, there are several kinds of ion drives. Some of them use gas, like neon or xenon, and they'll charge it and shove it out the back using charged grids. And they charge the grids either with solar panels or with plutonium batteries. And a plutonium battery will last for about 8 years. And it puts off a lot of heat. You don't want to use them here on Earth, but they're handy as hell in space.
Brooks, when do you think they'll ever tell us about the anti-gravity? Do you think they'll ever just bust it out one day, or is it?
Anti-gravity fascinates me. I don't know how it can be done. I would call it a gravity lens if it was anything, that we could use the force of gravity and we can lens it in a direction that we want it to go, down or sideways, to create thrust. But I haven't seen any evidence of it except for element 115, and I've never witnessed it myself.
Did you see? Well, I'm sure you haven't seen, but this is part of what sent me on this path was after I had my awakening with that ship and all that. Well, I ended up at Contact in the desert that year, and I'm pretty sure that you were speaking that year, because I remember your name.
Years ago.
Yeah, it was a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And isn't it weird how things come full circle? But anyway, so I went away from the CE5. I went out there, and there was some weird stuff that went on there that year. I don't know if you heard about that, but there was some weird stuff that went on, and there was a heavy military presence. Anyway, I leave the event, and there was nothing on the field when I left. Nothing. I leave the event, and I go away, and I see an ET ship in the rearview mirror behind me, and I'm like, oh wow, look at that! So I pull over, and I parked where I was staying. It was about a mile away from there that night, or maybe a couple miles, and I'm taping the ET ship, and I really fascinated with that. I'm thinking this ET ship's right over the field. I wonder if anybody can see this out there, right? Well, I didn't even realize at the time that there was two, what people call TR-3B craft sitting right there watching. And I got them on camera,
Wow.
which is crazy. I didn't see them, but when I went to play back that video, I was like, oh my gosh. Yep.
Yeah. And when I was up at James Gilliland's place, you were there last year. I spoke there, I think 6 years in a row, from 2006 to 2012. I took some daytime photographs of Mount Adams, and I got this big ship on daytime, but you couldn't see it with the naked eye, but you could see it in the digital camera. And I thought, how can that be? And then I realized that the chip in the camera sees other frequencies that the human eye doesn't see, and it will resolve them. Plus, the human eye is analog. So all you have to do is alter the frequency to about 70 hertz is all it takes, and you can disappear from the human eye. But the digital camera does what's called oversampling. When it takes a picture, how it gets all its megapixels is it oversamples the picture. So what it does is it catches fractions of the image of the craft and overlays them. And that's why you can see it with the camera, but you can't see with the naked eye. But this ship was about 500 feet long.
It's not easy to hide from us. It's really not a challenge. I don't know all the technology they use, but it's even coming out in the mainstream that they can, they have this light bending stuff that they can do that. They're doing something, but they're all over the place, and we just can't see them. It's really not used to, like you just explained. You're much better at explaining those things and understand them better than I. But it's not a challenge to hide. Is my point. My point is those ships were sitting there cloaked the whole night, sitting above that event, right? A UFO conference. I never in a million years thought they'd be sitting there above a UFO, but they are, and I caught them on tape. So
which also leads me another circle, because we're talking about spiritual things as well as high technology. For some reason, when humans are gathered together and they're open-minded to this kind of thing, they're open-minded to extraterrestrials or ultra-terrestrials or whatever you want to call them appearing, they come. They pick up those feelings. It's like they telepathically pick up on that emotion. And Contacting the Desert that year, I think Victoria said they had close to 8,000 people in and out. That's a lot of consciousness in one place, thinking one thing. It was fantastic, and it was beautiful, clear nights. So this disclosure, we're pretty convinced that all governments have this information, but the people don't, right?
Right. I mean, they have to. They're all keeping it a secret, so they all have to know about each other on some level.
So either they're using some technology that uncloaks their ships so they can see them, so they have to negotiate with them, or they're afraid of us. Why would they not be afraid of the governments? I would think that they would hide from the governments and show themselves to us.
I don't understand it. I've always thought it was really bizarre. You hear about the ETs being in these underground bases and this and that. Other people that have had experiences above ground with ETs on certain bases in the desert, right? And I think it's interesting. Like here you have these loving groups of people out doing these CE5 events, wanting to have contact and wanting to elevate humanity, but yet we don't have these physical manifestations, or at least very rarely do, of the ETs, but yet allegedly they're in full manifestation in the third dimension working with our military. So I just don't understand that. I don't, and I wish I had the answers. Why?
Well, I have a feeling that something's about to break. Something is about to be released. and it's going to be released in a big way, so that there's going to be a second level of Great Awakening. I think a lot of people are aware of UFOs and maybe aware of extraterrestrials or ultra-terrestrials, but if there was full disclosure, I don't think the world would panic like maybe 50 years ago. What do you think?
No, I don't. I think on some level, I think just about everybody knows there's extraterrestrials, and they may not all be hip to how advanced our tech is in the secret space program topic, but I think humanity understands on some level, even if it's kind of subconscious at this point because of the films and everything else, that there are beings that don't look like us, and they do ride in spaceships, and I think on some level, even the people that are the most asleep understand this, and so I don't think it would be massively shocking
now
anymore.
We share a recollection. You're from Alara of Sirius, and I am Brooks of just outside of Cygnus. Actually, the planet doesn't exist anymore. It was wiped out in a star explosion. But do you have a feeling from your experience in the ship of the type of beings that you were with?
Okay, so the original experience that I'm talking about that woke me up was not an ET craft.
Okay.
So it was I thought it came through maybe like a wormhole or something, because I didn't understand in the beginning, but I've talked to enough people now that would know, and they've all kind of told me the same thing, that it just decloaked is what happened. And so to me that appeared like, because it went from like a point of light to just a ship, boom, like that, right in front of my face. So it was like maybe 50 feet away from me. So it's the same ship that you'll hear, Corey Good has described it, the dark craft, the one he says that takes him to the moon. It was that ship, same ship.
Okay.
So yeah, I've seen a ship decloak in front of me. I've seen it, and it obviously it had a very strange effect on me in a multitude of ways, not just waking me up and making me start seeking answers, but
How did you gravitate?
I don't know if this.
How did you gravitate to Sirius then, from a non-ET ship appearing to you?
Well, seeking the creator, I guess, would be my answer. When I started meditating, I started asking for answers and putting together puzzle pieces, and I was shown that and I have, if you really kind of look, what's interesting is if you really kind of look up all the Sirian traits, I have them all, just completely, 100%. So I think that's interesting. But yeah, that was one of the first things that my higher aspects revealed to me. Is I don't know if it was a past incarnation, or I don't fully understand all this multidimensional stuff, Brooks. I wish I did.
I was speaking at an observatory, and they had a 25-inch Dobsonian scope there, a big one. You had to stand on a ladder to look through this thing. And they swung it around. We were looking all over the sky. We looked at different planets. You could keep it in the viewfinder, but we pulled it around and looked at the nebula by Sirius. And there was a guy that got done speaking before me, before we went out to the observatory. And he said, in space, there's no color. Everything's black and white. That Hubble adds color to everything to make it interesting to people. But I got to tell you, when I looked at that viewfinder, it captured so much light. It was all in color, and it just rushed in. That really sparked a kinship with that area of space. And I started studying it more. And it lined up with some dreams that I had when I was a kid. Well, after my event was the summer of 1965 in the Sierra Nevadas. But I could never put the pieces together.
Did a ship wake you up?
Unknown. I mean, I had a lost time. I had a day that disappeared in the mountains. And I still don't know what happened to this day, but I changed, because before that, I was just, a 9-year-old boy. After that, I was off the chain. I knew everything. I could just read everything and solve everything. I was doing my brother's chemistry. He was in college. I was, in the 4th grade. So they ended up putting me in military school to try to clamp down and stop my acting out, blurting out the answers in the middle of class. It didn't work. They ended up going back to public school in the 6th grade. But in the 7th grade, I started college. So at least I was getting input to keep up with where I wanted to go. I was never a little kid. I was a grown person in a little kid's body. So I was
That's interesting because I don't know how else to describe it, but I got kind of stupid after this happened to me. I got a lot of psychic abilities, weird stuff, right? But I when it came to like stuff in this dimension, typical stuff that I was once good at or whatever, I got kind of like I couldn't do it anymore. I just got really, I don't know. That's why I named my channel 1 Foot in 5D, because that's literally what happened. Like I felt like I got a foot in another dimension and I wasn't as locked into this one as I once was. So it's interesting that it affected you kind of in the opposite way.
Yeah. Well, it was like everything that I knew in previous lives, or at least that previous life 1,800 years ago, was brought to me and downloaded into me. So it was like,
wow,
what I had learned in a previous lifetime, all those lessons, all the experience came into a 9-year-old boy. And so
wow.
when I would go to the college, or I would go to my dad was a NASA engineer. He made clean rooms for NASA. When I would get exposed to that stuff, I'd be wearing a smock like they would, because it's a clean room environment. And they would just ask me questions in the 4th grade. And I had the answers. And they would look up at my dad like, and he'd do this. And it was like I knew what they were doing. It was cool. But it was scary at the same time for them.
Right? That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. I wish I could get some downloads like that.
Well, be careful what you wish for. And there's plenty of time, by the way. I didn't get my real big one until I was 52 years old. That was kind of a great awakening. Then I never went back to sleep after that. I kind of played in and out, because I wanted to have a life, job and stuff like that. I entered into the Air Force and tried to learn electronics, which I did, but didn't really turn out to be a good fit for military life. So I ended up getting an honorable discharge and getting out. There's a ton of stuff going in the chat room, some of which has something to do with what we're talking about. A. Smith asked a question before about nuclear explosions not having the expected yield. Oh yeah, a lot of nuclear explosions have either exceeded or underperformed on the expected yield relative to time and place, perhaps. And this could go back to what you were saying about beings in other dimensions, or ETs being affected by our nuclear playground, and so they step in and alter things. When I was doing my postgraduate work at Oak Ridge, I studied the sand at Ground Zero from Trinity, the first nuclear explosion. And it was interesting because the one of the guys that was a supplier for us for parts and stuff there in the lab was a former Marine colonel, and he was the security officer over the Manhattan Project. So he was to make sure that they didn't escape, that they didn't get kidnapped, that no one tried to kill them, that kind of stuff. And he told me stories about how they had a gambling board at Trinity, and it had all the possible yields, like under a kiloton, over a kiloton, over 5 kilotons, or a fizzle. And by the time Oppenheimer got there, the only thing that was left was over 5 kilotons, which nobody expected. Nobody predicted. And it was like 5.7 kilotons. So he won the lottery. But they didn't know. They did not know what the yield would be. And when they blew up the first hydrogen bomb, they didn't know they wouldn't set the atmosphere on fire. They did it anyway.
exactly why there needs to be accountability, and things need to be more in the open, because it's really kind of horrifying when you find out the risks that have been taken to accelerate our, technology, and it's like, woo, glad we dodged that bullet, right?
We cover all the space launches here. We talk about SpaceX and Blue Horizon and the recent Chinese success in landing on the moon and landing on Mars, and even the United Arab Emirates put a satellite in orbit around Mars. It's like first try, and they got it. There is some level of technology out there that we don't understand. And my friend asked me today, well, do you think they ever went to the moon? Do you think we actually went to the moon? And, I talked to a couple of the astronauts. Dr. Edgar Mitchell was on this program a couple of times. And he never led me to believe that they never went to the moon. He went to the moon. He stood on the moon and looked at Earth from the moon. I think if we didn't go, China would have exposed us by now, because they've covered that entire planet with high-resolution cameras. And if our gear wasn't sitting there in that basin where we said we landed, they would have exposed us as a laughingstock. And besides, we shoot a laser at the moon from time to time and bounce it off that reflector that they mounted to tell the distance from the Earth to the moon. That's how we know the moon is slowly moving away from Earth at something like a half inch a year or something. It's minute, but they can tell the distance very precisely with that laser. So other than the 1970s landings on the moon, are you convinced we've been back to the moon?
Well, I mean, look what Eshed said recently, I mean, look what Eshed came out and said. That was a pretty bold statement coming from the Israeli space head.
Fill us in. What did he say?
So he said that, I'm trying to remember, I'm not going to be able to remember it verbatim, and I don't have the article pulled up, but he said essentially that we're working with the extraterrestrials, that Trump was planning on revealing this, but he couldn't, because something about they said essentially we need to raise in consciousness first and understand what space and spaceships are, something to that effect. And he said, we have a base on Mars. We're working with them on Mars and the moon.
Incredible stuff. I
mean, it kind of bypassed the mainstream. It came out in the Jerusalem Post, and, I think one or two mainstream, articles covered it, but this was kind of a big deal. This guy coming out and making these statements, and population just sort of, I think we do. I think we do. And we have, for quite a long time. And I think it's just, when you have a deception going this big, how do you tell the people? Like, I just take me alone and what I experienced, right? And what it did to me. It took me like 8 months. I didn't leave my house. I studied. I can't imagine if you take people that are just fully asleep and you just lay it on them, So
they might not even open their eyes to see that it's there. Sergeant Friday makes an interesting observation in the chat room. The Elcon mission, which was back in 2009, I think. No, it was 2006. Elcon was a two-piece craft that we had orbiting around the moon, and the orbit was decaying. And it was supposed to have a retro rocket to push itself further out into orbit, and it failed. So they wanted to make the best of the mission, and so they separated the craft into two pieces, the front half that was dead and the back half, which was a radio spectrograph. And they resolved that what they would do is they would drop the front end of it onto the moon around the South Pole. And then when it hit, it would cause a huge puff of, with the impact, like slamming something into the moon at 7,000 miles an hour. It's going to make a hell of a cloud. And then they would fly the radio spectrograph through the cloud, analyze the cloud, send the information to Earth, and then let it splat into the moon. And so that's what they did. And they tried to look at the cloud from Earth using a spectrograph, and they couldn't resolve it. It was too far away. There wasn't enough backlighting, and they couldn't tell what was in it. But these spectrograph picked up a large amount of chemical water in the soil of the moon. And that started the whole thought process about building a colony on the South Pole near the Shackelford crater, which is in the middle of Schrodinger's basin, which is basically a ring around the South Pole of the moon. It's pretty much exposed to sunlight all the time, except for down in the craters, which is where all the frozen water and frozen helium-3 is. And that's what I think they're going after. But so far, no one's landed there yet that I know of. And I watch every launch that goes up.
You know, this occurred to me, and I had no awareness of any of this sort of like advanced technology stuff back then. But I remember thinking, even as a kid, thinking, you know, seeing all the rocket launches in the 80s and, you know, just being really into it. And then all of a sudden it was, oh, okay, no more rocket launches. We're not going anywhere. Never mind, guys. You know what I mean? And I was like, wait a second. No, I'm not buying this. I don't know what's going on, but, you know, so, I mean, if I picked up on that, I'm sure the population picked up on come on, we didn't just stop exploring space and lose the technology. And the whole thing we were told is like, okay, right? So
yeah, but then we picked up launching again, and we started the whole space shuttle program, which was wildly famous or successful, except for Challenger. And was Endeavour the one that burned up coming in? I can't remember which one it was.
I can't remember which one it was either.
Two terrible accidents, one taking off and one re-entering the atmosphere. But if we had that technology, why in the world were we strapping people to hydrogen peroxide rockets and launching them into space?
I don't know. It's so bizarre that I trip out on it every day because, you know, I do the Space Force News, and I watch the rocket thing going on, just like you do, and Elon and the whole drama. I watch it all the time, and I go, why are we doing this? Why are we doing the rockets and if we've moved far beyond that, which I believe that we have? Why are we continuing the rocket show? I don't understand why we're doing that. You know, do you have any feelings on that?
If they're trying to continue the deception, like, let's keep everybody looking over here at Boca Chica, Texas, while we splat starships in the desert, and over here we're running our anti-gravity ships from Antarctica to Mars and back.
Right.
You know,
I mean, that makes sense.
There are 10,000 amateur astronomers out there with great telescopes and take pictures of space all the time, and none of them have returned any information about, you know, flying submarines like Corey Good talks about, or you know, ships as big as, let's call it, Gateway. I don't know if the Gateway project is part of the Artemis plan. It's to put a orbiting temporary living quarters orbiting the moon, so that you can take people up, refuel their ships, and then take off for Mars. But I can tell you, Mars is never going to be practical until we get fusion rocketry. 7 months in an aluminum can doing the Hohmann maneuver to connect with Mars would drive people insane. It would drive them insane. You'd need something you'd need something the size of the International Space Station to go to Mars, not a capsule. That will never work. Fusion rocketry, you can cut it down to about 2.5 months. But that's still a long time in a room.
Yeah, it's a deep topic. What do you think about William Tompkins? His testimony?
I'm not familiar with him. Bring me up to speed.
Okay, so William Tompkins said that there's so much there. So he designed these alleged spaceships. They're like spacecraft carriers for. Okay, so imagine we have anti-gravity craft up there, right? So they're the spacecraft carriers where the anti-gravity ships land out in space. And he said, and he's got the documentation and everything, you should really look into his testimony, but he says that he designed these things for, I'm trying to remember which one of the the defense contractors he did it for. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he said he designed these things, and this was like in the I want to say the 60s. I can't remember exactly when. It might have been, anyway, it was a really long time ago that he designed these things. So, and I think it's what Dr. Wood says he worked with him. I don't know. There's a lot there to unpack with William Tompkins' testimony, but you really should look into it. And I believe me, I would think these things were outlandish too if I hadn't had the experiences I've had. I would. So I totally get it. Like, it's very hard to believe that we have this sophisticated technology and we're continuing the rocket show, and we've got the sophisticated technology that we're completely managing to hide from the population and have been doing it for a really long time.
Well, I read the patent, the Navy's patent that they recently published on anti-gravity drive, and there's one component that's missing. I mean, it's in the patent, but it's missing in real life, and that is the component they call exotic matter. Exotic matter is matter from the core of a neutron star. There is no neutron star, close enough to us, unless you want to go out to Sirius B, and maybe you could grab one. There's a neutron star out there. But if there was a tablespoon of matter from a neutron star here on this planet, it would fall through solid rock to the center of our planet. That's how heavy it is. So exotic matter doesn't exist on this planet. And I don't know if you could, I guess you could isolate exotic matter in space where there's no gravity, because it wouldn't pull itself anywhere. But you'd need that in order to make the anti-gravity drive for that Navy's patent. And I don't know, as I said, it has to be lensed. Gravity has to be lensed.
You have a much stronger understanding of all the scientific stuff than I do. I don't, I'm in the learning process with all of it. I'm coming from the standpoint of, I know what happened to me. I know what I saw.
Yeah. And
now I have to figure out how that happened. See what I'm saying? So
yeah,
you have this scientific grasp that I don't have. And I wish I had that. It's probably very helpful, but I just know that whatever I saw, I was taught in all the stuff that I studied when I was younger, that wasn't possible what I saw, but I saw it. So
I recall,
and I could believe, Brooks, I could believe that, okay, that maybe it was my imagination or all these things. You have to take in every possibility when you're trying to arrive at the truth.
Sure.
But there was somebody there with me, and there was 8 drones watching the whole thing, military drones. So apparently the drones were interested in what was going on too. And the person with me validated it. So I know it wasn't in my head.
Mm-hmm.
So if it wasn't in my head.
Well, it's nice to have a witness. I had a witness in my event in when I was 52 years old. It's the only way I got the other half of what was going on. I could see what was in front of me, but I couldn't see what was behind me, and they could. So, and you're right, I have to go to from the known to the unknown. It's hard for me to go from the unknown back to the known, which is, I know what you're trying to do. But, fusion is, we do it, but it's not very controlled. And in order to control it, at least on this planet, it would take a tremendous amount of mass, like a building with 30-foot thick walls of reinforced concrete. But the way it can be done in space is using helium-3. Now, helium-3 doesn't exist very much here on this planet. We can get it around volcanoes and stuff, but most of the
moon,
helium
right?
we have here is helium-4. So on the moon, frozen in the Shackelford crater is helium-3. Billions of years of it frozen, generated by the sun and frozen in that crater. We haven't yet accomplished it on this planet of helium-3 fusion. We've done plasmas, we've done cold fusion, but driving the helium-3 together to make helium-4 and kick those 2 protons off, which can also generate electricity, we haven't accomplished that yet because the activation energy is so high. In fact, we think it might even take a fusion explosion to get it started here on this planet. But I think it could be done on the moon because of low gravity and because of a natural vacuum. So once we get fusion rocketry, now we have enough thrust to push a 2 million pound craft to Mars in a month and a half. That's the kind of thrust that we're looking for.
Well, what kind of technology do you think the extraterrestrials are using, or the interdimensionals, however you want to view them?
Well, I think they figured out how to fuse that together for thrust. But if we're not, the blue haze that's put off, or the blue aura that's put off when you do fusion with helium-3 is telltale of these things. But the quiet, exhaust-free, like the flying triangles and these long cigar-shaped ships, they don't make a sound. Of course, they're not flying at 10,000 miles an hour either. They're flying low and slow, but they don't make a sound, and they're just floating. There's no fans, no props, no rockets, none of that. They have a way of floating inside our gravitational field, and I don't understand how they do it. Now, I heard a rumor. Well, not a rumor. It was a story. How much time do we have in this hour? Yeah, we got enough time in this hour. After World War II, a lot of the submarines were absconded with, and they were sailed to the East Coast, and they were scuttled. And then the people got out of the subs, got on rafts, rowed to shore, and blended into society. But the subs remained on the bottom, off the coast, outside the Hudson and all that. So salvage crews would go out there, and they would drop a diver down to the bottom in the murky water, and he would walk along the bottom in these heavy boots, feeling his way and try to find a sub. And once he found it, he would yank on the cable. They would send another cable down. He would tie it off, and they'd pull the sub up, and they would salvage it. And it was worth lots of money. So these divers were doing it, and this a couple 100 feet of water. Yeah. So this diver goes down, and he's sludging through this dark, murky water, and he sees a shape up ahead, and he keeps walking toward it. He gets to a certain point, puts his hands forward, and he falls flat on his face in a dry, open area under the water. And there in the dry area is a ship sitting there. And he is able to take his helmet off, and he has telepathic communication with the beings of the ship. Of course, he's an engineer. He wants to know, how do you power this thing? And they took him inside, and they showed him their power plant. Now, what he says is that it was a cone-shaped engine, and it had like impellers on the inside of it, and its secret to its lift was through stressing water. It would stress, the water is a very unique molecule in space, only one of its kind. You stress the water, and it would create a plasma field that they could then electromagnetically direct to lift the craft and move it forward. It was very interesting to me. I've never tried to stress water on purpose. I've done it accidentally, and it will totally destroy an impeller. The cavitation will just chew it to pieces. Get an impeller to stand up to that, and it might be able to lift a craft. I don't know.
That's a really fascinating story. Who was that general? Well, I mean, how did you end up hearing that story?
I read it, and I've got it in my archives somewhere. This was just, something that, and I believe maybe that's where they sit. There's 100,000 ships on the Earth, and if you look at a map at all the sightings in the United States, you're going, where the hell are all these ships? They could be parked
they zip into
under the
water.
Sea. Yeah, park under the sea. That's where I would do. And we don't know very much about our ocean floor.
Yeah, we know very little about our oceans. That'd be the perfect place to hide. And if they have a command of water in a way that we don't like that, then why not?
Well, you probably know Dan Willis. He's a former radio operator off the coast of Northern California, and he received a call when he was in the service of a ship, a surface ship, and a silver disc had broken through the surface of the water and zipped out into space at about Mach 3 or 4. And they called it in, and he's the guy that got the call. That woke him up, and he's been talking about it ever since. So these USOs are undersea objects. They're very fast. And I would say it would
Do you
be.
think they're all ET, or do you think some of them are ours?
I don't know.
I know you don't know what to say.
Yeah, I mean, if we have ships like that, why in the world would we ever fight a war? If we could go in, take care of the bad guys, and get out, why would we ever blow anything up?
I don't understand it, Brooks, because in my mind, logically speaking, if the ETs have this, which clearly they do, because we see them doing this sort of stuff, so it's only natural to assume that we acquired the technology or we've reverse engineered it on some level from them, right? That's just logic without even having the evidence of that. So, we have to have some knowledge of how they're powering these ships. We have to.
I agree with that. And I think that if you're an ET, why would you work exclusively with a corrupt government? Especially the military. The military's, I don't even know what their motivations are.
Maybe it's just the negative groups. I don't know.
Yeah, and maybe it could be, because that's what they've done since the Earth cooled, is they give both sides the same weaponry, and then they stand back and watch us fight.
Right? I mean, that makes the most sense to me. I don't think we're dealing with the benevolent races down here. I don't think that they would. Maybe I'm wrong. I know very little, but I don't think they would behave in that manner with our military. Knowing, I mean, if they're like we've talked about, they can read telepathically. They know their intentions, and they know our intentions. They know the difference between us and them. So why would they work with them knowing their intentions are not good?
Well, like in the chat room, they're saying, there's a lot of money in war, so why not do that? And I'm saying,
Right.
What does money matter to, an ultra-terrestrial or even a fallen angel? Why would they worry about money? They're much more worried about, I think, getting we mortals to choose wickedness or to choose hate over love. And that's how they capture the spirits of Earth. If we become a more loving being, they lose us.
I agree.
And it's just my opinion. You might disagree with me, but I think humans are not naturally warriors. We are naturally explorers. And as long as we have something to explore, some frontier, some mountain, some ocean to cross, some chasm in space to cross, we're pretty peaceful. When we run out of space and we start fighting over the zero-sum game we think is Earth, it can get pretty nasty.
Yeah, that's my understanding of humanity too. I think we're very loving beings, honestly. I think we're manipulated into being warlike and negative, but I don't really think that's who we are. If we were kind of left our own devices and not being manipulated in all these different ways, and I think we would be living completely differently on this planet than we are.
Yeah, I agree with that. When I wrote the Birth trilogy, hidden behind in the first volume is this Nephilim that's behind the scenes working in the deep, dark bowels of the global syndicate to try to win over the Earth. And what happens is, over time, Earth has a symbiotic relationship with the humans living upon it. And when humans become more wicked, the Earth has this allergic reaction. It rises up with a volcano or a hurricane or earthquake, tsunami, and wipes them out, takes them back down to a few tribes and lets them start over again. But when mankind is good and loving and charitable and all that, then Earth releases its bounty to mankind and mankind prospers. So now we're sitting at about 8 billion people on this Earth, and about half of us are wicked as hell, and the other half are kind, benevolent, patient, long-suffering beings. And Earth can't decide whether to wipe us out or whether to release the bounty. So the Earth decides to divide. A higher vibrational Earth and a lower vibrational Earth. It's the rapture, but it's science fiction rapture. Earth actually takes the square root of itself energetically, and the human race divides with the planet.
Yeah, you can see us dividing right now. You can see it happening. You've got people out there hurting people for no reason and killing people. We saw it this summer.
Yeah.
And then you've got those of us that are literally pouring love on each other every day and trying to wake people up and trying to learn and trying to evolve. And it's just amazing. You know, we've read about this in a lot of different books throughout history, that this time would come and this ascension, but it's to actually watch it happen is just wow.
Yeah, we are in the grand division right now. The grand division
Yes.
at the end of the age is happening right now. And beings like you and others out there turning on lights here and there all over the world, we're the ones lighting the way.
It's true. It's true. It's really super beautiful to watch, honestly. When I really get into thought about it, it's just
Yeah, it is. I mean, you would never
because
walk
those
away.
that are ascending and those that are not, it's becoming very clear and very obvious.
You would never go back to 9 to 5 and the ordinary earth life, filling your garage with toys and building up your 401k because we know, because we've seen the other side. We've seen the end game. And we have to walk that path.
Yeah. It almost it's weird. It almost becomes like a heart-centered obsession, I would say.
Ooh,
it has for
very
me.
good. I like that. We're going to take a quick break. I'm going to hear the break music here in just a second. They run about 3 minutes of their commercials on Revolution Radio, and we can just hang out while that plays. If I kill the studio, it may go to, I don't know, another realm. So, but we have another hour if you'll stay with me. I'd like you to.
Yeah.
I think we could go someplace else.
Great.
All right. So we will hear break music in just a second. I am with Alara of Sirius. If you want to find out more about her, she has a great Facebook page. She's at Alara of Sirius. Check it out on Facebook. It's wonderful stuff. Lots of great information there. We'll talk about books she's writing or papers she's writing or places where she's going to be speaking, and of course about her podcast. So when we get back after the break.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. And we'll be right back after this message.
Be evasive.
But that doesn't mean that they're telling the truth as opposed to fiction.
And Genesis chapter 6, verse 4, and there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came and also the daughters of men, indicating that there were giants before the Nephilim.
And sons of God, plural. They weren't talking about Jesus coming down.
No, that's right. Yeah. Uh-huh.
I'm Steve Crawford, host of Factor Theory Live. Join me every Sunday night from 10 p.m. till midnight Eastern Standard Time on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Check it out.
Transcending time and space, let us take you to the place inside your mind where thoughts divide and mysteries unwind. Join us every Monday evening right here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And you will catch the Fenton Perspective with our great host, Lorian Fenton. Come listen in as she shares her amazing stories from the past to present, along with all of her guest secrets to the future. That's the Fenton Perspective every Monday evening right here from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Revolution Radio. Oh, and you don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Galactic Interstellar Council on Revolution Radio Studio A, Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Join us as we traverse the starseed paradigm as expressed in the time-space continuum that we know as the divine expression of love and light. Integrating this conscious unity into the galactic paradigm. So welcome all, both terrestrial beings and galactic beings as one. So be it. You're listening to Revolution Radio.
If you think for 1 second that the Capitol will ever treat us fairly, you are lying to yourselves. Because we know who they are and what they do. This is what they do, and we must fight back. You can torture us and bomb us. Fire is catching. And if we burn, you burn with us.
Good evening.
Are you awake yet? I hope. We've tried and we've tried for years and years to use passive resistance and loud voices to make a change. The time is over. Your governments around the world have no other goal than to decimate your entire existence at the hands of the bankers and the elites. The war is coming, and it's your choice to decide if you want to be a warrior or a victim. Denial is not a choice anymore. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the planet. Not giving up. Revolution Radio. All right. Thanks for listening while we took that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And now we're going to get back to your host.
All right, Earth Explorers, welcome back. Thanks for taking the patience with that break. No problem. We love the people at Revolution Radio, the largest listener-supported network in America. Please go to freedomslips.com and make it a regular donation. A couple dollars a month, a couple 100,000 of you. We could change the world. Had a lot of people buy the books off Amazon the last couple of weeks. I super appreciate that. When you get the books from Amazon, they are not autographed. But that's okay. I can fix that. This is an autograph card, and it's adhesive backed. So you just order this from me for free. I will send it to you. You can peel off the back, stick it in your book, and you will have the present from the future right on the inside of your book. And I will probably send you this genuine imitation rubber wristband that says the present from the future. That will help get your conversations started. Those of you that get swiped left a lot of times, it might save you. I've been swiped left so many times the right side of my face is swollen. So it's all right. All right. I know what it's all about. So there was some discussion in the chat room going on about slavery and about how mankind has at some point or another since the earth cooled practiced it or been a victim of it. And that right now we're kind of undergoing a different kind of slavery. We feel as though our republic is being stolen around us, and there's not much we can do about it. We're watching Virtual Joe stand before the microphone and fumble his way from one syllable to the next, trying not to wet his pants on national television. And we know it's fake. We know it's all virtual. We know that doesn't mean anything. All these executive orders are meaningless because the states are not going to comply. It's one big, massive nullification fest out there. And if you listen to this program very often, you'll know that this is where the past meets the future. We talk about history a lot in here. And we've done this nullification before in our country. And it always ends up the same way. a battle between states that want to leave that system and a federal government that wants them to stay. And you can feel it coming. But this is kind of why I think this great spiritual awakening is taking place across the whole world. Yellow vests are burning things down and resisting. Hong Kong's resisting. Taiwan's resisting. Venezuela's resisting. And all across the United States, we are quietly resisting our own way. The red states are opening. The blue states are closing. You name it. But this spiritual awakening is taking place right now. And it's not evangelical. It seems to be this kind of fifth dimensional, like Alara's talking about. 1 foot in this dimension, 1 foot in the fifth dimension. You can see it. You can sense it. You wake up in the middle of the night by it. And what we're trying to do tonight, this hour, I want to try to see if we can explain it. Why you're feeling that. And we really want to avoid war. I don't want to hate. I don't want violence of any kind. But we outnumber them. And we have an energy about us that's much higher frequency and much more bonding than they do. And I think at the end of the day, I think we can win a lot of them over if we do it right. So, Laura, what are your feelings about this? Because I know when you get these awakenings, it's not like, oh, I'm going to know everything and I'm going to be able to pass those exams. That's meaningless to us. It's given to us for a reason. And that's why you are on your podcast all the time, sharing it with people. That's what gets them excited. That's why you're here tonight, because we experienced that watching you, and we wanted you here on this program to share that with us. So what are your feelings about this? How do we bring the fifth dimension in to help us in the third dimension?
Simple love. I have friends of all, Brooks, I have friends of all walks now, all religions, we need to begin to wrap our minds around this. We've gotten involved in politics because we've had Trump, and but it really, at the end of the day, it's really not about that. It's about people who love freedom, and who want to be free and want to love each other and don't want to live enslaved and persecuted. And we're going to live this way. Feel free to join us. If you don't want to, that's fine. You can stay in their slave system. They'll be happy to oblige. They'll chip you and everything. They'll change your DNA. They'll assimilate you. You can become one of them. You can become part of the Borg, or you can come over here and be a freedom-loving person with the rest of us. Love each other. Get back to the basics. Grow our food and do things because it's the right thing to do, not because there's some necessarily even some law or instruction telling us to do so. This is kind of where I see us going. And I think at some point, you're talking about avoiding war, right? Because it's clear this bifurcation in humanity right now.
Yes.
So I think it may not even come to that. And I think I don't understand dimensional shifts. I don't have a grasp on that, but I think we're going to leave these metropolitan areas. This is where I see it going. Is we're going to leave these metropolitan areas. And we're going to congregate into communes, groups, and we're going to be self-sufficient. And we know that they're going to cut us off from their system, and that's fine because we're already mentally cutting off from their system. So we're kind of ready for that to come. And I think that's literally going to happen. You're going to have your cities and your major metropolitan areas. And you're right. At first, it may come down to the states. Some states are more freer than others, and that might be where we first set up these. But there's going to be entire areas that are going to be people like us. And then you're going to have the areas that are more urban areas that are going to have these people that are all chipped and they're just following orders. And, and I'm not judging them. That's their path and what they're choosing. But you're going to see that split. Will there even be a war? I don't even know if that's entirely necessary. I think this energetic shift is happening, people on the whole planet.
Well, it is. And they feel it too. Like, I have a friend that works at Lowe's. His name is Rodney. And he works in the appliance areas, stocking them and making sure they have them. So I asked him yesterday, can you order like refrigerators and stuff? He said, we can't even order refrigerators until April 23rd. So I went to the factory today. I went to the refrigerator factory today. And I spoke to the manager there, one of the managers in the quality department, because I'm a quality engineer. And I said, listen, I spoke to my friend at Lowe's, and he's saying he can't get fridges till like April 23rd. He said, that's correct. I said, why? He said, because the government is writing checks for $1,400. And what happens is all these people get these checks and they want to go buy stuff, but they don't want to work to make the stuff. We don't have the employees to make the refrigerators to get them to Lowe's for people to buy, because the government is subsidizing people to not work. Right. So they're breaking the system by basically making everybody employees of the federal government and competing against private enterprise.
Right. Yeah, you're seeing it left and right with these mom and pop stores are shutting down. All you have left are the corporations. It's
Right.
very hard for me to watch. It's very hard to watch. So it's becoming more and more clear to me that at a point we have to literally step out, you know.
Rob in the chat room says, Rod from Lowe's in appliances. He knows everything there is to know about fridges. Well, maybe. I know everything there's to know about building fridges. He knows everything there's to know about selling them. It's two sides of the same coin there, Bob or Rob. So we're all right. We have a good understanding. What I'm trying to understand is, along with Alara, is every once in a while when things get really foggy and noisy, you have to stop and say, what's going on? What's going on? We're watching this old guy barely able to not slobber on himself on camera, can't get 12, 15 words out in a single string without stumbling. And we're going, we're almost saying the words for him. He's so bad. And yet the whole world is following him as the leader of the free world. I'm not getting it. I'm not buying it. Something else is going on here. What do you think, Laura?
Can I speak freely?
Absolutely.
Or no? Okay.
A minimum of profanity because of the broadcast network that we're on, but you get it. You can say anything you want.
Okay. So, clearly, he didn't win the election. So, and everybody knows that. And even people that didn't agree politically with, us Trumpers, put it that way, even though their eyes are now being opened and they're seeing that, yeah, but we know that Joe didn't legitimately win this. So we're literally watching. I don't know what we're watching. I'm one of those people that really need sauce on stuff all the time to sort of believe it or to but this gets weirder by the day. It really does. I mean, between the White House being dark at night and fences and the military presence there, it's like our election literally just got stolen, and it's like they have the Capitol locked off, and what are they doing? I don't know what they're doing.
Well, they passed a $1.9 trillion what they call COVID stimulus that has nothing to do with COVID, very little to do with the people that actually need the money. Somebody said, well, what are you against the people getting a little bit of their money back? I said, wait a minute. That's my money. I didn't get any of it. I make too much. I didn't get any of it. That's my money they're giving away.
Right.
And what is it about bailing out all the blue governors and the blue mayors? I don't understand that. And what's with the open borders? Who gave out the Biden T-shirts?
It's crazy what we're looking at. He literally just reversed all the good that's happened in the last 4 years, just as quick as possible. It's almost getting ludicrous. Like, really, Brooks, look at the Dr. Seuss stuff. Just this week, we lost Dr. Seuss, Pepe Le Pew. Now, I just put it on my Telegram feed. Now they're coming after Swiss Family Robinson, Dumbo, and 4 others.
Wow. I don't understand what's racist about green eggs and ham. I'm lost.
It's becoming absurd. It's like this is being done on purpose to just wake people up.
Yeah.
It's getting to levels of absurd. It's just like, what? Swiss Family Robinson? Green eggs and ham?
I'm not getting it. Cat in the MAGA hat?
I just, what are we watching right now? I don't know. It really does seem like some bizarre movie, though. but because it's definitely not reality.
So maybe this is why disclosure is really needed, because it would crack through all of this.
Yeah.
When I watch Elon Musk take the risks that he does with landing his boosters back on that C pad and trying to land a serial number 8, 9, and 10 lands and then blows up. He's getting close. But these are great risks that are being taken, and they're being taken in rapid succession, like just weeks apart. It's incredible. You know why? Because governments are not going to drive the exploration of space. It's going to be private industry.
Private industry, 100%.
Because it's
true.
the gold. It's the gold rush. There's a 10,000-year fuel supply sitting 2 days away. Just sitting there. No fences around it, no flag on it, nobody owns it. 10,000-year fuel supply for Earth sitting 2 days away. Why are we here?
It's all so bizarre, It's all so bizarre. I guess that's why I just try to pay attention to what's happening and, just pay close attention and try to figure it out. It's because it all to me is so bizarre. And when you take into account my own experiences, right, to see the things that I've seen, and then to be watching what I watch every day, which is, us this fight for, and look, and Elon seems like he's in a huge hurry too.
Yeah.
He's in a huge hurry to go somewhere, which makes me think there's a competition going on some level that we're not really privy to. And why right now? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, when you patent something, or when you start up a company, I've started so many companies now, I lost track of them, but it wakes you up at night, and you think it's sort of like when Michael Jackson, they'd finish a song, all the editing and everything, and get it just mixed just right. It'd be 2:00 in the morning, and Michael would say, "Hurry, let's copyright it right now." And they'd say, "Michael, it's 2:00 in the morning," and he would say, "Yeah, but if we don't copyright it right now, Prince is going to have it by 6:00 in the morning." Michael Jackson realized that these downloads they come to all kinds of people.
Right.
And the race is on. Once you get the copyright on it, then it's yours. But that's what Michael Jackson understood. And that's what Elon understands. He sees Blue Horizon. He sees the European Space Agency. He sees the Russians and the Chinese. They are this close to him. They're this close. And they have he was the richest man in the world. Now he's the second richest man in the world. Some fluctuation in the stock price. I don't get it. But he's putting his money where his mouth is. And he's a young guy. He's smart. He's bold. I don't agree with everything that he does. I'm also in the electric vehicle business. I make trucks. He makes cars. But lots of my friends don't like him because his ego is very large. But you almost have to be a sociopath to run a company like that, because you got to overcome all the naysayers. So for me, it becomes a race against the energy. You want to get the prototype built, get the patent filed, pay the money, go through the argument, and win the patent. And once you win it, then you can relax a little bit. But it's a race. It's a rush. It's a race. I'm telling you, I worked 95 hours a week until it was done.
My co-host on Space Force News calls him the King of Mars.
Yeah, well, maybe. I don't understand.
He certainly wants to be.
I understand the allure with Mars because it's the doorway to the asteroid belt. The asteroid belt's really the goal. That's where all the resources are for the whole solar system forever. Mars, you could build a base on Mars. You could build reactors on Mars. I don't think we're ever going to have a very large colony on Mars because it's too harsh. But we could make asteroid-sized space stations. And I got to tell you, in my dreams, going back 1,800 years to the star system Cygnus, that's what they have. They use asteroids and they build them out as space stations. And they just float through space.
What do you think the moon is, Brooks? And you and I don't know each other very well, and I have a lot to get to know about you. And I can tell you've done some interesting things for a living in your. What do you think the moon is?
Well, the moon has a lot of data that indicates it might be artificial. The one piece of data that confuses everybody is one of the first missions up, the manned missions to the moon. The astronauts were trained in geology for months before they went up there. So they went up there and they took these geological sensing instruments and placed them on the moon, dug down in, set them up, set up the antennas and the solar panels and all that. And then they got back in the Eagle and they launched. Well, the can of fuel underneath them was an aluminum fuel tank that had a rocket on the bottom of it. It doesn't take much to lift a craft, and it only weighs 1/6 what it does here on Earth, and you have any atmosphere to push through. So it launches, exhausts the fuel, and they don't want to carry the fuel tank with them, so they jettison the fuel tank, and the fuel tank slowly drops back down to the moon. But when it strikes the surface of the moon, the geological instruments that they had put in the ground sensed the fuel tank striking the ground. That wasn't the odd thing. The odd thing was that it rang for 2 hours. It didn't just thud and that was it. It reverberated for 2 hours. They were picking up the vibrations on those geophones. This tank weighs maybe 600 pounds, empty, and 1/6 that on the moon, 100 pounds. Nothing. And yet, when it struck the ground, it made that ringing sound. So we also know that there are a lot of volcanic vents. The Chinese are getting ready to send, and we're getting ready to send probes up there. I just talked about it on Sunday. Probes to go into the volcanic vents. This is not an easy thing to do because, once you're underground, you're dark. There's no communication. So they have to put a gooseneck down into the cavern to look down the cavern so that it can communicate with the probes as they're going through and gather the data back. Otherwise, the probe will get lost and you'll never get it back out. And they're going to try to map the inside of these volcanic vents. I think that's the key to putting a colony on Mars, on the moon. But what if the vents lead into a hollow area of the moon? I think it's quite possible. We know one thing, Earth is made mostly of iron and nickel, and the moon is made mostly of titanium. So they're two different planets. One was not made from the other. So there are two theories. One is called Earth capture theory. The other one is called moon capture theory. Earth capture theory or moon capture theory has been invalidated. We've looked at the math a dozen different ways. It's impossible. The moon was here first, and the Earth was brought up to it.
Interesting.
The moon does not orbit Earth. The moon orbits the sun. The sun exerts over twice as much force on the moon as Earth does, and is tidally locked with Earth. And it does go through Earth's orbit, but it doesn't technically orbit the Earth.
Have you seen any of the videos? There was a couple interesting ones that came out recently. I showed one of them on the show, but it was what looked like spaceships to me, clearly flying by the moon, and somebody captured it in their telescope. Now, why we don't get things like this on tape more often, again, comes down to, I would think, cloaking technology, but sometimes people are able to get this on tape, and it's fascinating when they do. Just spaceships.
I'm telling you, the cameras the scopes are good enough. These 10 and 12-inch scopes that are owned by private people. They zoom in on the moon, they stay on it, and they have ultra-high resolution cameras, cooled cameras, so they have perfectly stable images. And they just watch the moon all the time. And when these things show up, they catch them on film. And it is quite fascinating.
One of those.
Yeah. The scope's about $4,000 for a basic one with a motor drive. And then the cameras start at about $2,000. And you don't need an eyepiece. You just hook it on your computer and do it that way. Who wants to sit out in the cold and look through a telescope?
Right.
And
Yeah.
the East Coast here, where I'm at, outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, we have more clear skies than any other state on the East Coast.
Well, that's a blessing. Where I live, they love to spray the sky. They're going at it all the time here. It's all the time. It's very rare. But in Hawaii, the sky was natural almost all the time. They don't do it there for some reason.
We have
So
not had
it's
a
nice.
chemtrail since Trump was elected out here. The January that he was elected was the last one we saw, and it's been clear blue skies ever since.
Wow. Yeah, it seemed like it's here in Arizona. It seemed like it went away during his administration, and ever since the Sleepy Joe clone, whatever it is that's in the White House, it seems like it's picked back up. It's not nearly as bad as it used to be, but it seems like it's picked back up since that dynamic changed.
Interesting. I wonder who's running it. I mean, and why? There are claims that Earth is going to undergo some warming, but it hasn't been. The last 2 years, and we just finished the second one, have been the coldest Februaries for California in history. And this
Because
recent,
we're going into a mini ice age.
yeah, and the recent storm that we had, the polar vortex going down to Texas, that's not rare. That's happened before. What is rare is for it to happen over North America, Europe, and Asia at the same time. That has never happened before.
Yeah, I don't know what to think about. I don't know if that's just part of this whole process we're going in with the end of the age and the sun cycle and all that, or whether that was completely natural or whether that was, I don't know.
Well, some
What do you
people were
think?
talking about it being HARP enhanced, and of course I've done 5 documentaries on HARP. I know a little bit about it. There are 27 operating ionospheric heaters, and most of them are in areas where oil and gas exploration is actively going on, which would be Texas. But I checked my ham sources, the ham radio sources, because there's a ham signature that goes with the HARP arrays when they're turned on, because they're square wave antennas. And I didn't get the hit that HARP had been activated. This was normally what happens is the jet stream undulates. You see it on the flat map on the weather, but it undulates around the planet. But the sun has been so quiet for so long that the period of that undulation has gotten way longer. And that's why it kind of went down in North America, down in Europe, and down in Asia, pouring this polar air far, far south than where it normally goes.
Does it have anything to do with the weakening of the magnetic field?
I don't think so. Sergeant Friday brings up a good point. I was just going to bring this up. We technically are in an ice age, if you think of this on a Kelvin scale. The false rumors that lots of the glaciers of the world are shrinking, that is not true. Almost every single major glacier formation in the world has been growing for 10 years.
Really?
Yes, really. Glaciers are not receding, they're growing.
Huh. So why do we hear all this stuff about Antarctica? We're going to get some sort of Antarctic disclosure, and that things are melting out there, and so that's why they don't have a choice but to reveal some of this to them. So why do you think we hear that type of stuff then if nothing is melting out there? There's got to be another reason.
Well, it's not that it isn't melting. The ice cap is moving. That's over the water is calving, but that's over land is growing. So the area of Antarctica is growing, but the specific shape of the ice is changing. Like there's a piece, 1,400 square miles that just calved, but it's also growing in another place. And, I'm familiar with the host that you're talking about releasing stories about Antarctica, but I'm close friends with Brad Olson, who went there and photographed it himself and said they're just spinning a yarn. It's not happening. There's no secret stuff like has been shown in crayon drawings on various other channels.
Right. Gotcha.
And Sergeant Friday brings up a good point again. Sea ice, it's seasonal, always has been. It's true. There's a thing we call red ice, which lasts from season to season. But the Arctic and Antarctic, the sea ice shrinks and grows on a seasonal basis. And that doesn't change the sea level at all, any more than ice cubes in a glass of water change the volume of the water in the glass. The only thing that would change the volume of the ocean would be if the land mass glaciers were to melt, and that's not happening. What does change is the salinity of the water, and that can change the amount of heat that it retains from the sun. It also changes its ability to sustain acidic conditions, like happens when extra carbon dioxide's in the air.
You're a wealth of knowledge.
Yes, before Google, I am.
Right? There's Google and then there's Brooks Agnew.
No, first there was Brooks Agnew, then there was Google.
Then Google.
But Google has a lot more knowledge than I do. Oh, yes. And don't forget, Boo is reminding everybody in YouTube to please hit the like button. It's important. And by the way, if you get the chance, and you need to take the chance, I will not settle for anything less. Please go to Alara of Sirius at Facebook and follow Alara. A wealth of energy, love, and I think we're going in a great direction. I love it takes all of us. There's no one leader to all this. Somebody was asking me the other day, well, why don't we rise up? Why don't we take back over our government? And I said, well, look, all the energy's there, but there ain't no leader. Nobody's going to stand up and say charge. This is a grassroots kind of light thing. What's going to happen is they're going to throw a war, and no one's going to show up. That's
right?
What's going to happen.
They're trying to. They literally are trying to, and it's not working out for them the way that they had planned. And just to make a correction on that, I used to be about what you said about the Facebook. I'm not on Facebook very much. I used to be pretty hardcore with the Twitter warrior stuff, but my account got pulled down when Trump's did.
Yeah.
So I created a Telegram, so that's mostly where I'm at now.
Okay.
I try to post to Instagram and Gab but there's been a lot of issues with Gab, and I do to Facebook. I try as much as I can, but I've mainly started the Telegram because it's like a replacement for Twitter. I'm very used to Twitter.
Yeah.
So
I got on Telegram the day that they started it, but I was all by myself. I was in the parking lot by myself. And one by one, people have started to join it, I've noticed, but I still don't know how to use it.
If you don't know how to, or somebody showed me how to do this too. If you don't know how to organize your files, like all the people you're following, all the channels and all the chats, if you don't know how to organize that, it becomes overwhelming and you'll totally miss stuff. So, but there is a way to do it. And I have a friend who I think is going to make a video on this soon. There is a way to organize it where you can keep track of it almost like Twitter once was, but there's,
I got to go to Telegram College for sure.
Yeah, it's its own entity.
I'll look up Groupon around
sure.
and see if there's a Telegram group. But the weather's getting nice, so I'm going to be riding my motorcycle. Not going to be paying attention to Telegram much.
Sounds good.
And I was on Gab too, and then Gab started charging me to post, and I went, that doesn't fly with me, so I'm not going to go premium on Gab either.
It just doesn't work for me most of the time. I go there and it just doesn't work. And I thought we were going to get moved to Parler, but then everything went awry with Parler after Twitter got, the Twitter purge happened. Yeah. So I ended up on Telegram just because it's more comfortable of a platform for me, considering that I'm used to Twitter. But yeah. So, and I think on Facebook, I'm Alara Sirius because you can't put at something.
Oh.
So I put, and a lot of people think that's my last name, but it's really just, I got that name because on Twitter I was known as Alara of Sirius, and it was at Alara of Sirius on Twitter. So it just kind of, when I went to make a Facebook account, I had to pick like a first and a last name, so it says Alara of Sirius.
So
anyway.
So what is your handle on Telegram?
It's Alara of Sirius channel. I think you can search it, but I'm not even positive on that. I'm pretty sure you can search it like Alara of Sirius channel.
Okay.
Yeah, it really complicated things getting my Twitter pulled because that's what I gave everybody, and that was what I knew, and it kind of
I
threw me for a
reposted
loop
a
there.
doctor's article about masks, and I got put in Twitter jail for. I'm still having problems.
Do you still have a Twitter account?
I have 2 Twitter accounts, but I have to. I'm gun shy because I just reposted an article about some doctor saying don't wear the same mask all day, and they went, "Oh, this goes against our community standards," and I was dead just like that. Same thing happened with LinkedIn, and I've made 6 appeals to LinkedIn, 6 over one doctor's article, and I can't get back in. It's too bad. I had like 3,000 followers. I actually sold a book or 2 on LinkedIn. Can't get back in.
Yeah, I think me and a lot of people I know, we knew it was coming. We knew it was coming when they would take all. We couldn't believe it the day it happened though. One day, just everybody gone, doon, and I'm going, whoa, they're taking out all of us.
Well, I'm way down the pecking order. When they took Red Pill out and all my other colleagues, and I tried to move them over to D Live and Twitch, which they did, and they managed to stay alive a little bit. But nothing like YouTube. I mean, he had 250,000 subscribers on YouTube, and he's got like 4,000 on D Live. That's not the same world, and I don't know what it's going to take to shift that. But I got gun shy after that. I'm gun shy with this program.
I get it. Me too. I'm so proud of them, honestly. All those guys that got taken out in the YouTube purge, they really just moved on and they figured it out. And I'm really proud of what they did. They just sort of kept it moving and they didn't let that shut them down or get to them. And I'm really proud. Same thing with, it's interesting to see the dynamic too, how everybody on Twitter, everybody got a huge number of people got taken out at once, depending on how undercover you were and how much you weren't undercover about it. And it's interesting how we've all moved to Telegram and we're just trying to keep doing what we do there, even though it's.
Well, maybe Telegram will get the bandwidth, and we can get a stream key, and we'll stream to Telegram, and that will change everything. But they don't have the bandwidth yet.
Yeah, that would be absolutely great. And who would have thought Telegram would wind up becoming home?
I know. I'm amazed. Like tonight, we're being blocked by Facebook actively tonight, but everybody else is running. We have people on Periscope, on Twitch, on D Live, on YouTube. So there are lots of people. No, I'm not going to give away any lemons tonight on D Live. Just hang out and enjoy, Lara, okay? And then next week we'll give away some lemons on. I have to bribe my listeners. What can I say? No, I don't.
They're serious about those lemons too. Let me tell you, when I don't empty my chest, they get mad.
Yeah.
They get mad.
Yeah, I had to appeal to them too because they X tagged me. And so I appealed to them, and they took the X tag off, so I was able to share lemons with my listeners. So I'm pretty non-controversial when it comes to that. I'm very pro-government, but as far as the Republic, but I'm not like Republican and Democrat. I don't get into that at all. I'm more establishment party, or what I call the global syndicate, that's been around a long, long time, and they are actively running their game right now. Fortunately, because of the books that are out and all the, thousands of hours of YouTubes that are out there, people now know what they look like. And I think we have Trump to thank for that, because we really didn't know who they were. He made them take their masks off and come out in public and fight. And now we can see them for who they really are.
It's true. It's true.
And I'm surprised a little bit that they were able to steal this election. I went to D.C. on the 5th. I was there with 500,000 people. The energy was phenomenal, but we were sad at the same time because we watched our republic taken from us, and there wasn't anything we could do about it. It was like they ran the show. They ran all the outlets and all the newspapers and all the TV, and they created the narrative. All of a sudden, we were insurrectionists. I was going, what are you talking about, insurrectionist? I'm singing the national anthem here. Anyway, that's the way it went.
I didn't go to DC, but I got very depressed after that. When I saw what happened and what transpired, I got very depressed. And I shut down for a couple weeks. It was really hard for me to watch what was happening, but I saw everybody go through the same thing and pick themselves up and keep fighting. And it's, and adapt and adapt to the censorship and just keep it moving. And that's really been beautiful to watch.
Yeah. And we didn't get antagonistic about it. We turned our cheek and we went on. And I don't know what's going to happen. People are asking, so what's going to happen? Are they going to put Trump back in? Is, Kamala Harris going to become president? Nancy Pelosi? I don't know. I can't figure out where it's going to go. But I know it's going to go somewhere, because a country divided cannot survive. It has to change. It has to change.
Yep. 100%. It has to change. And too many people are awake and too many people are waking up, and it's going to have to change, just like you said. Now, what way exactly is it going to change, how that's going to play out and what that's going to look like? I don't think we really know, but it's going to change.
But I want it to be peaceful. I want it to be where we just figure it out and we just walk away from it. I honestly don't want the $1,400. I don't want a stimulus check. I'd rather see the Dirty 30 arrested. And let's see the rule of law work the way it's supposed to work. Let's see, what else is going on?
Many share your sentiment on that.
Angela's asking the question because she's on YouTube. She doesn't know. What do the lemons do? The lemons are on DLive. It's a cryptocurrency that's in the DLive.tv/Brooks Agnew world. And it's money. The hosts share it with their listeners in a random way, and you could build up a bank, and then you could connect it to your checking account and withdraw the money if you want, or let it ride and keep it growing. It's a cryptocurrency. It's real. So that's what it is.
You get lemons and Lamborghinis and something. I don't. You can tell I don't know. I'm on too many platforms, just like you. I don't know them all the way that I should.
Well, when I first started on DLive, it was a gamers platform. But they had a podcast folder. There wasn't anyone in it, and nobody podcasted, very few people. So I said, why not?
When did you start on DLive?
Just before the first of the year, I think in November sometime. They had some gamers on, but there was maybe one or two podcasters on there, and they were talking about games.
That was before they took Red Pill and Edge of Wonder out?
Oh, yeah. It was about 2 months before they took them out.
X22 and, yeah.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, that's,
I kind of saw the writing.
What you have to do now.
I sensed it
on multiple platforms.
I sensed something was going to happen, and I contacted a friend of mine. He said, well, have you ever heard of Restream? I said, what? So I went and researched it. I slugged through it like everybody else. Yes, there is crying in Restream. But I slugged through it like everybody else and learned it, and then I shared it with Red Pill and others, and they just jumped right in there and gravitated to it. So they had to. This is their only source of income. This is not my only source of income, so I don't have to do it, but I love doing it, and I've been doing it for 17 years. So I just, stay at it, stay nice and steady, and give people information and try not to be hateful at all.
You're a wealth of information, Brooks, for sure. It was a very good insight moving to all those that's what I've had to do. I mean, I still have a YouTube channel, but I stream now to Foxhole. I'm on the Foxhole. I stream to the Foxhole, DLive, and I'm trying to start doing it on Twitch, but DLive and the Foxhole, because I know that anybody that's on YouTube that's speaking the truth, your days are numbered. Or you're going to be shadow banned into oblivion, basically.
Yeah, you what happens, I have like 12,000 subscribers, but they turn off the notifications on a regular basis. People have to re-click the bell when they come in, and your audience just continuously shrinks because no one can find you. I mean, unless they search for you on purpose. But you're never going to be a suggested channel unless you guys keep hitting that like button. You are hitting the like button, aren't you? Make sure you do. Dittobots is on Twitch. Says, found Brooks through Red Pill 78. Yeah, because I was on Red Pill's program, and that's how Dittobots found me, and now they're listening to me on Twitch. So this is good.
That's awesome.
So what is coming up for Alara? Were you gonna be speaking in 2021, or you're gonna write a book or do a film? What are you doing?
I don't really know what 2021 has in store yet. I'm just kind of focusing on my channel and that sort of stuff. I've thought about writing a book. I may at some point decide to do that because I do have there's a lot there. It's just a matter of writing it and deciding how much of it I want to write down.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I've
just
thought
start
about
writing
that,
and
but
see what
I'm
comes
just
out. Just start writing and see what comes out. People
right.
say, "Oh, I'd like to write a book." So, well, there's 365 days in a year, and if you write 1 page per day, which doesn't take much, 6x9 format, it's not very many words, like 280 words a day. In a year's time, you'll have a 365-page book. So I write mine. I'm writing my 12th book now. And if you need help formatting it or publishing it or any of that, let me know, because I'll do all that stuff for you.
Brooks, very nice of you. I used to, believe it or not, I worked early in my life. I worked in production in Hollywood, and I was screenwriter. I've written a few screenplays, none of which got made. That's a whole nother story. But anyways, and it's interesting, the topics I used to write about too, Brooks, is nanotechnology. I wrote another script about just concepts that we're seeing play out now that back then were just based on books I'd read.
Yeah.
That like you said, how artists get downloads, and you better copyright it because you're not the only one getting the download. But anyways, I digress. But
no, it's not. I in 2011 I was doing an extended contract down in Mississippi, taking a plant apart and moving it to Texas, and this idea for a screenplay came to me. I never wrote a screenplay before, so I got the final draft software and started writing, and I wrote this 86-page screenplay for a film, which was called Birth, and I didn't know anything about getting it funded either. Nothing happened. It sat there for 4 years until Trump came down the escalator. I went, wait a minute, I think that's in a screenplay. So I pulled it out and read it, and I went, yeah, well, now I can't let it sit there. It's never going to be a film. So I turned it into a book, and it turned into the Birth trilogy.
Interesting. I thought, writing's my passion, has been my whole life, but like I told, I went through some really traumatic stuff before I woke up, and I haven't written since. And that was like 7 years ago. And it'd be interesting to see what I would write now that I'm awake.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But I just have to get to the point where I decide I'm stop being afraid or having a block there about writing again, and just get in there and do it. So hopefully I can.
Boo brings up a good point. I meant to ask you about this because in some circles, I'm the Hollow Earth guy. So I want to ask you questions about what your feelings are about Earth being hollow.
So funny you bring this up. Foyle and I were going to do Conspiracy Couch on the next episode, and we were going to do it on Hollow Earth. Totally come on Conspiracy
I should. Couch. I will. Absolutely.
As a guest co-host.
I got gazillions of stuff.
Earth. That's what it was. You were the Hollow Earth guy. What do I think of Hollow Earth?
Yeah.
I think it's, I think it's honeycombed, and I think we got people living in there. I think we have entire civilizations that we're unaware of. Now, what dimension are they in? Are they in our dimension, or are they in another dimension? That's a whole nother question. But
well, we've detected oceans underneath the crust, under the Atlantic Ocean. There's an ocean the size of the Arctic Ocean. We've already measured it. We know that the core of the Earth is a solid iron crystal, somewhere around 6,000 degrees C, which would make it white hot or white in color. And we know that the orbit of the Earth and the mass of the Earth, that is to say the diameter of the Earth, there's about 1,200 kilometers missing from the size of the Earth. So if the core is that dense and the crust is dense, there's about a 1,200 kilometer space between the core and the inside of the crust. And they're counter-rotating. That is to say the core is rotating faster than the crust, and that's what makes the magnetic field. We've got good data to back all that up, but where we go from there, I don't know.
Let's go explore it.
That's what I say.
I'm down.
That's the North Pole
I'm
Inner
kind of
Earth
crazy,
Expedition.
they'd say, though.
Yeah, that's the North Pole Expedition. We've been working on it for years and years, but it's expensive. Woo! About
I'd go.
Just under $4 million to pull that one off.
Wow.
Yeah, it's expensive.
That's expensive. Super expensive. Was what, you and Brad and other folks going to go down there? Or?
Yeah, well, go up there. We're going to sail up to about the 86th parallel on a Russian nuclear-powered icebreaker called the Arctica class. And we had to design some equipment. One's called a core dart. We drop it off the side of the ship. It goes down 4,400 kilometers and hits the bottom, takes a core, seals it off, inflates a bag, and floats back to the surface. And we recover the core. It takes about 8 hours for this cycle to occur, although it depends on how fast it can come to the surface. But 4,400 meters is 14,000 something feet deep. It takes a lot of pressure to get it back to inflate, and you have to use helium so it won't liquefy. It's some technology. There's a submersible that goes on a cable, but it's only good for 1,400 kilometers. It has to be refitted to go that deep, and that costs $5 million.
Wow. See, this is getting funding for this kind of stuff. This is another one of my things that I feel like the technology aspect of things. I don't know if we have time to go into any of this, but I feel like we need to start just like crowdfunding. I don't even know how to start doing it, where we can start building. Because if we just build stuff open source, like they can't take it from us or hide it from us anymore. And I really have a passion about it. I don't know where to start. I certainly don't have the money. So it's like, but I see this happening. Like we're talking about our communes where we're living away from the system and all that. I could see that naturally starting where we have, new Earth type of schools for the children where they're free to learn and expand their mind in a natural way. And then on top of that, to have engineers and scientists then free to build and pursue, who knows the kind of stuff like sound technology. We don't have, we both know there's stuff there with sound technology that can be done. Why aren't we doing it?
Harmonic levitation. Yeah.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of cool stuff. We got a whole another couple shows to do yet.
Yep.
We have about 2 minutes in this program, and I just have to tell you, I've really enjoyed having you as a guest. I told you, these 2 hours go in about 20 minutes. It's done. It goes so fast here. And I appreciate you coming on very much. Thanks for coming on short notice, and let's stay in touch, riding-wise. We'll have you back in 2 to 3 weeks, and we'll talk more in depth on Hollow Earth. I'll send you some stuff and get the creative thoughts going, and we'll see if we can do this again. You up for it?
Yes, and I would love for you to come on Conspiracy Couch with us for our Inner Earth episode. That would be amazing.
Let's do that.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed talking to you. It's been great, but I had a feeling it would. So.
Yeah, well, I did too, but it was good. It's, children of the same corner of space, I suppose. There are Pleiadians. I understand you guys. Sirians were just a little different.
It's true. It's true.
All right. Well, we're going to probably hear our tune-out music here in about 60 seconds from Revolution Radio. Thank you so much for being part of the program out there, streaming audio all over the world on TalkStream Live through the Revolution Radio Network, the #1 listener-supported network in America, maybe in the world. And we're also streaming live on YouTube, Twitch, Periscope to Twitter, and DLive. We never made it to Facebook tonight. For some reason, they blocked us. If you missed part of it, James and Walker, this is all recorded. You can go to any one of these venues and listen to it again, and we'll be there. And then you can make sure to follow Alara and her work. And we're all going to grow because of this. It's all very good. A lot of good fun, a lot of good, exciting, let's just call it synergies between people. And this happens all over the world. We have people listening in Europe and Australia and South Africa, and it's West Coast, East Coast, all the way down to Texas and all the way up to the middle of Canada tonight. So we appreciate you all, and we would not be here without you. Thank you so much. I wish I could name you all, but As you know, I don't have guests on very often, so I'm focused on her, and I'm sure you are too. Because very much appreciate your presence. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brooks.
All right, Earth Explorers, that is it for us tonight. Hopefully, I think in about less than 1 minute, Revolution. I don't have a show clock. That's the thing. I have the little computer clock down in the corner, but I don't have seconds on it, so it's not like a real clean board here. This is real world stuff. But you know what often happens mid-sentence, and then here comes the break music. Listen, I want you to go out and look for the good in one another and help it to grow a little bit every day, because if you do, eventually, we'll save the planet. This is X Squared Radio. I'm your host, Brooks Agnew, saying, peace, Earth Explorers. Now, go and do. And be fearless. We'll see you Sunday night at 8 o'clock right here on the America Free Radio studio. I think I hear it. You never know. It's just like, it's overdue. 15, 20 seconds overdue. You know how it goes. You have to run a tight board here. Make a smooth exit while the exit music is playing. Not going to happen tonight. Just one of those things. Thanks so much,
Are we
Laura.
still on?
Yeah, we're still live. We're still live. I'll stop streaming here in just a second. Doesn't look